Hi YouTube, it's Kathy and this is my weekly entertainment wrap-up for July 14th through 20th. This week I read 2 books, I watched 1 show, I watched 1 movie, and I listened to 2 books. First this week I finished my yearly reread of Me and White Supremacy. This is exactly what it says on the tin. This started out as a 28-day Instagram challenge and then morphed into the book that it is today. And this goes by day, talking about different things to do with racial injustice and what white people's part in them is. At the end of every chapter there's then journaling prompts so you can reflect on how this specific subject has impacted your life and how you have potentially done wrong in the past. And now that you know about it, you can do better. The first time I read this was in the first half of 2020 and I decided I was going to reread this every year. I actually reread this that year because I first listened to it as an audiobook and then I got an e-copy so I could actually do the journaling prompts. And now I also own a physical copy. Because I figure if I'm going to be reading it year after year after year, I should have a physical copy. I use this as a really good reminder to keep these topics at the forefront of my brain, and this isn't the only book I read on the subject, but it is a reminder to think about this subject. Also, if you can tell that I'm being a little bit more quiet than usual, there are people sleeping in the room above me, and hopefully they can't hear what I'm saying right now. The other physical book that I finished this week is Glitter and Concrete, A Cultural History of Drag in New York City, and this one is exactly what you would expect from that subtitle. This one goes back as far as the 1800s and talks about different performers and different laws at the time and different acts, and it goes all the way up until about 2022 because I believe it was published in 2023. This was a fantastic way to just reinforce the fact that drag is so expansive. It can mean so many different things, and sometimes people that are doing drag don't even know that they're doing drag, because sometimes some people think that drag is just this one thing, gay men putting on dresses and wigs. It's not just that. It was also very interesting to find out how terminology has changed over time. For example, drag queen used to actually mean what we would call a transgender woman now. So if you were to look into historical documents, sometimes it'd be difficult to untangle exactly what is meant by certain words because they've changed over time. I found this really interesting, and it was very interesting to see it from one focal point because obviously drag has existed in other places for just as long, if not longer. But it was very interesting to see just how much drag just funneled through this one city. As for the 1 show I watched this week, I watched well over 1 season of Criminal Minds. I started at episode 22 in season 2 and I finished in episode 7 of season 4. Obviously a lot has happened over this time and I'm getting a few more episodes here and there where I haven't seen it before, or it'll start out and I'll be like, oh, this person's in this episode, oh, I know who the unsub is. Or it's just in that time frame where I'll be like, I'm pretty sure that's Luke Perry, but I'm gonna have to wait until the credits come up at the beginning of the episode after the title sequence just to make sure, and oh yeah, it's Luke Perry and he is playing a cultist. Okay. What I really love about watching the show this way is all of the little things that happen with the different main members of the cast. You see their stories growing throughout the seasons and little things happening, and I really enjoy being able to string that together properly instead of just dropping into random episodes like when it was on cable. Speaking of the era of cable, the next movie I watched is a classic that I used to watch all the time as a kid from 1993, and that's Last Action Hero. This is an Arnold Schwarzenegger film that makes fun of Arnold Schwarzenegger and Arnold Schwarzenegger films. Essentially, our main character is this kid, I believe his name is Danny, and he really loves cinema. Like, he spends most of his time outside of school in his apartment at this cinema with this one guy who runs the projection booth. And he finds out that this guy actually has to check the film for the latest Jack Slater film at midnight, and he's told that if he's there, he can watch the newest film, which he's like, yes, this is my favorite film, I would love to do that. Jack Slater is basically the John Wick of its time, and it's about to be the 4th movie, and he really wants to know what's going to happen because he's been rewatching the 3rd movie religiously and he just needs to know how things go. So some other things happen, but he ends up going, and just to make it a more special occasion, the guy who runs the projection booth lets him in and is like, I've had this ticket that Houdini gave me years ago and he said it was all magic and whatever, but I want to give it to you because I've never had the guts to use it. And of course he tears the ticket, puts one half in the box, Danny gets the other half. Everything is completely fine until Danny actually gets sucked into the movie and has to convince Jack Slater, not Arnold Schwarzenegger, Jack Slater, because he is Jack Slater and he's never heard of Arnold Schwarzenegger, that this is a film and he knows exactly what's going to happen. And he knows, for example, that his ex-wife isn't going to be at his house because her name wasn't in the credits. I haven't seen this movie since probably the late 90s, and so many little things about it came back to me, and I probably spent a fair amount of Game of Thrones going, why does the Lannister dad look so familiar to me? And it's because he's the bad guy in this film. There's also a part in this film where Schwarzenegger plays Schwarzenegger, and that's just so funny to me. So yeah, if you've never heard of this one, it's definitely worth your time. It's so cheesy at points and I love it. As for the books I listened to, the first one is a middle grade called The Chance to Fly, and this was such a good book. It actually had me crying in parts on my walk. Well, I was trying not to cry because that's embarrassing, crying in public, whatever. But if you were a theater kid like I was, you would get it. I finished this one at the beginning of the week, so things like what city she moves to and her name are really fuzzy right now, especially because it's 6:30 in the morning. The main character in this one is a 13-year-old girl who uses a wheelchair. She and her family just moved from California to, I want to say, somewhere in New Jersey. I might be wrong on that point. And she's kind of having to settle into this new life during the summertime, and she's supposed to be joining this team of wheelchair racers because that's what she used to do back in California. But she is a kid absolutely obsessed with musicals, so when she sees a poster saying the next day there's auditions for Wicked, she has to try out. She has to try out because she knows there's one character in that musical who is in a wheelchair because she's listened to that cast recording hundreds of times and she knows that she would be perfect for Nessa Rose. However, upon getting to the auditions, she realizes that, of course, Nessa Rose is magically abled in the second act, and since she can't get out of her chair, there's very little chance that she'll be able to play that role. That doesn't stop her from auditioning behind her parents' back, and she finds this supportive group of friends, and it's just so good. It's got all the theater feels, it's got all of the first crush feels, it's got all of the best friend distance problems because her best friend is still back in California and they've grown more and more distant because of the distance. This is absolutely fantastic. When Wicked came out, I was listening to that soundtrack all the time. I've actually seen this production twice in the West End of London. I do still have my playbill, but it's buried under a bunch of things and I'm not going to dig it out right now. But I'm pretty sure you can see it on the wall of some of my old videos in my old place when I had stuff on the walls as my background. I actually found out about this because one of my viewers always tells me what she's reading in the comments down below, and I saw that and I was like, wait, I know that. That's lyrics from Wicked. Could it be the same thing? Yes, it could. And I found out that there's actually a sequel called Let Loose, and you better believe that I'm going to be listening to that one as well. Also, as an addition, this is a book that is co-written, but Ali Stroker, one of the authors, is actually a Broadway actress who uses a wheelchair, so that's great. She also narrates the book, so there's bits where there's singing, and she can clearly do the singing, which is wonderful. And based on Let Loose, I'm pretty sure I know which musical they're going to be doing in the second book, but I have to wait until I actually read it to find out. The other book I listened to this week is An Elderly Lady is Up to No Good. This is a short story collection all centering around this one character named Maud, who's in her late 80s and likes to kill people when they get in her way. I think this had 4 or 5 stories, and the last 2 stories actually centered around the same case, but you saw it from 2 different points of view, which I thought was really, really cool. And we just got to see these moments in Maud's life where things were just going in certain directions, and in order to correct them, she just had to do a couple of simple things, and then, oh no, this person has passed away, how sad. I saw my friend Rachel talk about this one over at Reads with Rachel, and I was like, that sounds like something I would enjoy, and I very much did. And I feel like there's full-length books about this woman, and I would definitely read them. I just haven't figured out if my library has copies or not. That's it for this week. If you've read, watched, or listened to any of these, let me know about it down in the comments below. On the way down to the comments, if you hit that subscribe button, that would be very nice of you. If you don't feel like leaving a comment, I want to make sure that I know you were here. Just leave me an emoji or a smiley face if you happen to be on your keyboard. Some people have asked if there's a way to financially support this channel, so I set up a Ko-fi account, which is a digital tipping service. The link for that, as always, is down below. You can like and share this as you see fit, and I will see you very soon. Bye! Come on, coffee, we've got editing to do.